Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by Capsule to Cone. I'm Matt McQueen, and today on the channel I want to talk to you about how you can make your own acoustic guitar and vocal videos. Something that's just really simple. It's video content that you can shoot, that you can record, that you can mix, and we're going to be making this into a two-parter. I'm going to talk about how I produced it here in the studio, and then David is going to tell you how he mixed it. The song is called Crepe Myrtle. It is by my friend Clayton Crowder. Clayton was down for a weekend in the studio, and I said, hey, let's just go ahead and, you wrote this song, let's just shoot it, let's set up, let's film it, and I'll record it, I'll make some YouTube content out of it, and you can have it for free. You can just put it out to your audience. So we did it, and it was super fun. Let's take a look at the video first, and then we'll talk about how we made it. So here's the video.
'Cause I've burned bridges all across this town, born ablaze in the Puget Sound. It's hard enough to heal. It's only bad luck I make for myself, but it won't ever be enough.
So there's a bunch of stuff I want to talk about with this video because it's really important to me to make sure that you know exactly how I do this. Even if you don't have all the gear, even if you don't have the U87 and the vintage 414 that we used on Clayton, that stuff doesn't matter. So don't get all caught up in the technical of whether or not you've got fancy microphones or fancy preamps. It took me a long time to build into that. And you can still make something that's really, really good quality without having that stuff. You don't even have to have the 4K cameras. These could have very well been, you know, GoPros that you could get from Walmart, or it could have been just two iPhones, the cameras. So that part is not as important as making sure that you understand where to place the cameras and how to sort of light the subject so you can get the thing that you're going for. And then also, this one technique works really good for acoustic guitar vocal videos, but we totally could have used a different technique that would have worked just as well. This is just the one that I thought was going to really capture what Clayton was doing, and I wanted something where I was going to get a cleaner vocal and reject some of the acoustic guitar, get a cleaner guitar, reject some of the vocal, and so that's why I chose what I did. So we're gonna talk about all of that in this video. Cameras, angles, lights, microphones, and then in the next video, David is actually gonna take the song and he's gonna show you exactly how he mixed what I gave him. The first thing that I want to talk about is going to be video, and I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on this. I am going to just kind of briefly review the equipment that I have, but what I really want you to get from this is, hey, if you don't have the same equipment that I have, do not worry about it. There's tons of stuff here on YouTube to show you how to use your iPhone or use GoPros to get a particular look. And so the important thing is just making sure that you are taking the steps to film a scene that both looks good and sounds good. What I want you to also get from this is, if you're sitting down with your acoustic guitar on your couch to film something like this, and you're not turning off just the regular, if there's fluorescent lights in the room, or if there's just two lamps or something around, and that's just the normal lighting that you have in the room, and you're just going with that, you're not trying hard enough, all right? I realize that we all have certain limitations to work within, but you do need to try to be a little creative with this and try to get good lighting on your subject and make sure that you're paying attention to what is in the background. Nobody wants to see the cat pillow that your grandma gave to you when you were 12 that sits on the couch in your dorm room. It's gonna look a lot better, go to a local bar in the middle of the day when there's nobody there or something like that, and see if they'll let you, film before they open for an hour while the bartender's setting up. That'll be, good publication for them. You can talk about, hey, we went to this bar and they let us film there. And most bar owners that I know, the ones that I run sound at, they would definitely let you do that during their non-busy hours. So, try places like that. If you don't have something that gives you the cool background where you can set the lights up, be creative, but just don't do this, at least that's my opinion, don't do this on your couch. Unless if you just have a really awesome couch and, you're in some room that's filled with lots of mahogany bookshelves and, there's a pool table in the background or something like that. I mean, probably not a good idea to just do this on your couch. The lights that I have are just $150 light kit that I got from Amazon. They are LED lights. It's what I use for my YouTube videos. They're super affordable. They give me just some direct light. I can blend the colors on them. They're on stands. They're really easy to move, and they're really easy for me to pack down in my case when I do have to go somewhere and shoot something on location or whatever. The cameras that I'm using are Sony a6400 cameras. One of them is on just the cheapest tripod that I could find. That's a ball head, fluid head, whatever tripod that I could get. It was like 150 bucks. And it's nicer than the tripods that you can buy at Walmart, but it's not as nice as like a real fluid head tripod that would cost you, you know, several $100s. But it's good enough for just setting the camera on, and you can make like little short easy shots, or you could just set the camera on it and it's just really stable. Like I said, I'm using a6400 cameras, and then for the moving angle that I had on Clayton, I'm using a Weeble S gimbal that I got used on eBay for like 300 bucks. And that's it. That's all the camera gear. So just a cheap $150 tripod, a cheap $300 gimbal that wasn't even that expensive. I mean, that's not super cheap, but it's also not like there's gimbals that are in the thousands of dollars. And two a6400 cameras, which are a few years old at this point, and you can find them used for like 700 bucks. So we're talking maybe $2,500 in camera gear total. You know, if you've got friends that are film students, they probably have some of this. If you know a guy that's a YouTuber, he probably has some of this you could borrow, but you could also totally just go with $70 work lights from Home Depot and your iPhones. I promise that would also work. It's not gonna look exactly like this, but it would give you some direct lighting and give you two camera angles to work with. And then you just, once you've made your background and you've got a good background, you're great. So after that, we're talking about the audio stuff. And this is the part that I want to spend a little more time on and kind of get into the weeds with. What you can see from this angle that I'm going to show you kind of zoomed out is that I have two microphones on Clayton. I've got a U87 and I've got a 414, both pointed sorta at him and sorta not. What I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the fact that these mics are both multi-pattern, and they're honestly just two of the multi-pattern microphones that I have. I only have one other multi-pattern mic, and it's a Shure KSM44. And then I do have a couple of ribbon mics, but I felt like a ribbon might be a little dark for this application, and so that's why I picked the condenser mics. I wanted something that's gonna have a little more brightness, a little more top-end detail, and what I'm doing is taking advantage of the fact that the U87 sounds great on a vocal, and it also sounds great still in the figure 8 pickup pattern. So I'm rejecting some of the guitar and still getting a great vocal sound with it being angled up towards Clayton's mouth, and then with the front of the microphone pointed at the guitar. And then I'm doing the same exact thing with the 414. I think these 414s sound great for acoustic guitar. Normally, when I'm recording an acoustic guitar, I'll end up doing it using probably the omnidirectional pickup pattern, because then I can get that microphone a little closer to the guitar without the proximity effect, adding a lot of low-end information. In this particular instance though, I actually knew that I was going to be a little bit farther from the guitar, and that I was also going to try to angle the microphone up towards Clayton's mouth to reject some of it. And when you get to David's video and you get to listen to him mix it, you'll see that predominantly in both microphones, you end up with the primary source being the loudest thing, and you do hear sort of this faint, more distant version of the other source of the, you know, if you're listening to the acoustic guitar, you're gonna hear less of the, you're still gonna hear the vocal, but it's interesting. It's quieter, but it just sounds sort of distant in the microphone. So it's really cool what this technique can do, and I've used it a lot. I've made solo acoustic records just this way, where this was just all that we did, and we just recorded all day long until we got a take of each song that we liked and kept it. Alternatively, if you didn't have two microphones that had figure 8 pickup pattern built into them, what you could do is you could probably go with an SM7 on the vocal and then a small diaphragm condenser on the guitar, go that way, and then, you know, you're really not going to get a ton of bleed from the acoustic guitar in an SM7, especially if the vocalist is, you know, right pressed up against it, and then you just want to get that small diaphragm condenser also sort of close to the acoustic guitar, and just listen, you know, before you commit to the recording, move the mic around a couple of different spots and just listen, make sure you're not getting too much low end from the acoustic guitar. that's probably a good alternative way to go, and I've definitely done a few of these that way. I just prefer this method, especially for something like this where it's finger picked. The acoustic guitar is pretty light, it's not playing super loud. I just think it feels really good, and I just really like how the big large diaphragm condensers sound on both of these sources, and then being able to take the advantage of having a figure 8 pickup pattern on each mic and reject the opposite source from each microphone. Man, it's a lot of fun. So if you do have a chance to use a couple of figure 8 mics, I really recommend trying this out. It's what we did for this video, and I think it turned out sounding really, really nice. Beyond that, the microphones then are coming here into the control room using my two favorite preamps right now, which are these 7th Circle Audio N72s. They're sort of a Neve 1073 type clone. Really like the way that they sound. You can get them just a little bit crunchy, add a little bit of extra gristle and grime to them by really turning them up and then turning that trim knob back. For this though, I did leave them pretty conservative, set pretty clean, and didn't really add a ton of grit or girth from the mic pre. Just set them both on about, I think they were on 4. These are stepped gain on these preamps, and so I think I had them both sitting at 4, and then just brought the trim back to the level that I captured it at. After that, I ran the vocal mic into the purple MC77, and I went for just a pretty light amount of compression. It was getting maybe 1 to 3 decibels of gain reduction on just the normal phrases, and if there was some little tiny louder sections or some just fast, transients that would come through, the MC77 would catch that, and it would probably go up to 10-15 dB of gain reduction just really, really quickly and just catch those for me. But it didn't happen that often with what Clayton was playing or singing, so I didn't really have to worry about it. I just set it pretty conservatively and let David do most of the compressing in his mix. So you're gonna wanna check that out if you're gonna wanna see what it sounded like before and after. The guitar I ran into the Spectrasonics C610. This is a really great compressor for acoustic guitar because it's called the complementer. So it's really kind of 2 circuits in one working together, and you can set it so that it's just doing peak limiting and not doing any real gain reduction of the source material. It's just finding those super fast transients and it's shaving them off a little bit, so you can end up with an acoustic guitar that's not overly compressed sounding but doesn't really jump out of the mix anywhere. So I set that up, had Clayton play the louder bits of the song, and just made sure that, when he was doing something that wasn't finger picking, he kind of goes to this strumming section towards the end of the song, that it wasn't gonna clamp down or get over compressed. And so once we had done that, I felt like, okay, we're ready to go. And then the last thing that I did, and this was just so that we could reference, we knew that David was probably gonna put some reverbs on this because it's an acoustic guitar and a vocal, and for something like this that's sort of intimate, you really want it to sound like it's in some sort of space and not just up close on these 2 microphones. So when Clayton and I would come into the control room and we were monitoring, listening to the couple of takes that we did, I just put a little plate reverb on there, Avid Space. I think it's just called basic 140 or 140 plate or medium 140, something like that. And I just stuck that on both the guitar and the vocal so that we could listen back with a little bit of plate reverb and just make sure that it sort of had the vibe that we were going for. And once we had a take that we were happy, we decided to sit down, and I made just a rough mix, which was just me pushing the faders to where I felt like that they were both right, and I bounced that out, and then I grabbed the video files from both cameras. And this next part I think is really, really important. Most of your DAWs will let you watch the video while you're mixing. So what I did was I went ahead and did just a rough edit, color grade and everything, jumped into Final Cut, made sure that my white balance was sort of set right, and then I wanted this blue tint to kind of be on the video, so I tinted and color corrected, made it sort of bluish, and then I exported the video and just uploaded a pretty compressed small 1080p version of that along with the source tracks to send to David. And I felt like that this was gonna really help him in his process so that he could see, okay, this is the vibe, this is where they're at, this is what the room looks like, it's got this old piano behind him, this is what they're going for, and that would help him to make sure that he didn't exaggerate the reverb so much that it just felt fake and was like just too much, and that it also just had sort of the vibe that we captured on camera in the mix. So that's it. That's all we did. Of course, you don't have to send this off to somebody to be mixed. If you're doing something like this yourself, you can follow David's guide, which is gonna come out tomorrow on the channel. And you can also head over to capsuletocone.com. You can sign up for the email list and you can get these source tracks to mix yourself, practice mixing an acoustic guitar and vocal, and follow the steps that David is going to show you in the next video. Till next time, guys, I've been Matt. If you've got any questions, leave them below. I'd love to answer them. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification so you'll know when our next video comes out. That really helps to support the channel, and I'll see you next time.